I never really thought we'd get to 50 videos here, but here we are, and we have to go big. And when The Lost Boys came out in 1987, I was 7 years old, and at that point in my life, time capsules were kind of a big thing. Now, for those of you who may not know what time capsules are or the purpose behind them, it was basically adults convincing you to bury a bunch of important shit. We didn't have the internet. There wasn't OnlyFans around at the time. We had to find things to do to keep busy with. I never did one, though, because, I'm not partying with my G.I. Joes. Like, what am I going to put in there? But if I had done one, there'd have been a Lost Boys soundtrack, a Lost Boys movie poster, probably a set or two of those really janky plastic vampire teeth. This movie for me is a time capsule of me at age 7. I still remember every detail of the day that I saw this movie for the first time, and that is something really important and really special that a film can do to you. So let's talk about The Lost Boys. Can we please first acknowledge the soundtrack of this movie before we do anything else? We're not even through the first 5 seconds of the opening credits, and we get the 80s banger known as Cry Little Sister, which, if I'm not mistaken, was the official theme of this movie. Sets the tone, and goddammit, we're off and running. We glide over the ocean, which is a beautiful shot, before we settle on a boardwalk amusement park. It's there we meet Kiefer Sutherland and his group of guys. I'm pretty sure that was Alex Winter of Bill and Ted fame in there. Fantastic addition to the cast. But I'd have bet my $5 a week allowance that Bill S. Preston Esquire would have been the one to make it out of that movie and have a stellar career instead of that Keanu guy. Proof positive I was a terrible gambler. Now David, who is played by Kiefer Sutherland, doesn't realize that the girl he set his eyes on has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend doesn't take too kindly to his lady being picked up by these 4 guys. There's a scuffle. The poor security guard, just doing his job, happens to break it up, and then we see that guard, after his long, arduous shift is over, he's walking to his car through that long parking lot. We see an aerial view of something descending down upon him. Now he sees it, panics, but he's a bit too late, because whatever that is has such force to it. It rips him away, it rips the car door he's clinging to away, and the body count has begun. Lots of aerial shots in this movie, and they're all very beautiful. It's gorgeous, fictional Santa Carla, California. We follow along a station wagon pulling a trailer with a family of 3 and a gorgeous dog named Nook. Lucy is driving her sons Michael and Sam in hopes of starting anew. They see a massive Santa Carla billboard. Michael notices it, and then as they pass it, he sees on the back, murder capital of the world. One hell of a place to seek out a fresh start in. Then the Doors' People Are Strange kicks in. Chef's kiss. Perfect start to this. Several great shots in the next montage as we go through Santa Carla. We see all sorts of different people as we sing along with Jim Morrison. Different types that I didn't know existed as a 7-year-old boy. We see rides, we see attractions, we see Michael looking for work. We see all the different culture that Santa Carla offers us in this movie, and you just feel like you're on this ride with both of the brothers, Sam and Michael, played perfectly by Corey Haim and Jason Patric, respectively. This is a beautiful family. Chemistry's great between them. That's a recurring theme in this movie. The chemistry between the actors is second to none. They reach their destination that would appear to be a cabin that was either once owned by Jason Voorhees or will be shortly visited by Jason Voorhees. It's that creepy looking, and we do have a man laying motionless on the front porch. Lucy, played by the incomparable Diane Wiest, finds her father laying motionless, and immediately you think Jason has in fact stopped by to this cabin. Sam hits us though with the first of many of his great one-liners in this movie when he says, "If he's dead, can we just move back to Phoenix?" So luckily for us, Grandpa's not dead, he's just playing possum. Michael and Sam start moving their belongings into the cabin. We see taxidermied animals. We see a rustic sort of decor. Michael says out loud, this doesn't look so bad." Sam says, "Sure, if you're in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre." Great line. This kid doesn't miss. Grandpa's outside helping Lucy unload the trailer. And it's here we find out that Lucy's recently divorced. She's starting anew, she doesn't have any money, she's flat broke, and she wants a honest-to-goodness fresh start for her boys, and possibly to spend some time with her dad. Sam, Michael, Lucy, and now Grandpa, they just seem like a strong unit. Grandpa's cool as hell. You immediately care about these people right off the bat. In any horror movie, you've got to care about the main characters, because if something happens to them and you're just indifferent about it, what's the point of any suspense, any tension? What are you really scared of? Then we get something for the ladies, and we've got a shirtless saxophone player just rocking the crowd on the boardwalk at Santa Carla. Now, I was under the impression as a youngin', when you were married, you stopped looking. And that illusion was shattered, obliterated, put in a sharpshooter, tapped out when I witnessed my mother's weird mumblings as soon as that guy came on the theater screen. There were a few rows in the theater that also heard it as well. Awful experience of my life. That being said, that man could play the saxophone, and they established that boardwalk as the place to be in Santa Carla. Michael and Sam are so far digging everything about their new surroundings. That's when Michael takes notice of this dark-haired, gypsy-looking girl ascending a set of steps, watching the performance herself with a young kid by her side. He is taken with this woman, and he's not very subtle about the way he's staring at her either. Far from her kids, letting her kids have their space, Lucy might have stumbled onto a little bit of a boardwalk romance herself, because she helps a little boy reunite with his mother, and that leads her to meeting Max, who's the owner of a video store, who takes an instant liking to her and even mentions they are looking for help, which is perfect because Lucy needs a job. Now, once this dark-haired beauty takes off, Michael is hot on her trail. Not wanting to be a part of whatever Michael is trying to achieve with this woman, Sam decides he is going to slip in the comic book store that they go past and see something he enjoys. Now, again, as a 7-year-old, this movie talked to me, because what 7-year-old boy didn't love comic books? And this comic book store was awesome. Not only was the comic book store awesome, but then we get the Corey and Corey union on screen. That was just a mega power connection in the 80s and part of the early 90s. I could have lived in this scene, as every corner of it had something that I loved in it. You had comics, you had Corey's, you even had a bit of shoplifting, as that guy that almost got his butt kicked by Kiefer and his guys on the merry-go-round takes a stack of comics and races off with them. Well, Sam is looking for Batman books, Michael is looking for romance, and he chases this girl until we find out that she is, in fact, actually with David and company. She hops on the back of his bike, they all ride off together. Later that night, though, we see the girl from the merry-go-round and her shoplifting boyfriend in a car in the same parking lot that the security guard got wiped out in. They're sitting there, cuddling, reading comics, laughing, all until something descends upon them, rips the roof of their car clean off, and takes both of them for a ride, whisks them away up into the sky. There's very little to keep Sam busy at this point, so he keeps going back to the comic book store, run by the Frog Brothers, Edgar and Alan. Now, Corey Feldman plays Edgar, the most well-known of the two brothers, obviously, and they take special interest in Sam. Now, they ask him what he thinks of their fair town. He gives his opinion. They hit him with,
"If you're a Martian
or a vampire.
Are you guys sniffing on newsprint or something?"
For another great line from Corey Haim in this movie. The kid is stellar. But the Frog Brothers slip him a vampire comic, which he insists he doesn't like horror comics. They say, "You're going to like this one. Our number's in the back. Pray you never have to call us." Now, Michael's back at that boardwalk himself, and he's buying himself a new leather jacket. He's looking into getting his ear pierced. I got the feeling here he was doing everything he could to make himself into the type of guy that he could see this girl being into. Now, he's looking at this place that's piercing ears, and wouldn't you know it, the girl happens upon him and says, "Don't worry about that. That place is a ripoff. I'll pierce your ear." We find out her name is Star, and she's played by Jamie Gertz, and she does so good in this role. She's absolutely stunning. She agrees to go grab some food with Michael after some small talk, all before David and his crew roll up and remind her that she is with them. Now, Michael's not going to back down from these guys when they come to pick up Star, but he knows his bike can't keep up with their bikes more than likely. Does not stop him from trying, though. They race their motorcycles off of the boardwalk, over the beach, through the woods, and towards the bluffs. This is an amazing, amazing scene of this movie, because Lost in the Shadows is playing another great 80s song. You just feel there. You're transported there. You're captivated by what's going on the screen. These guys are young. They're having the time of their life. It's the 80s. They're just flying through the night, and it has that fun and adventure of being that age, with that fear and uncertainty also of who our main characters are sort of falling in with. This whole race, we find out, is a setup, though. It's obviously meant for Michael to try to keep up with David, and David knows where he's going, but Michael has no clue. And just before he gets to a drop-off that would lead him to a watery grave, he's able to get his bike down in the nick of time. Now, he's pissed. He jumps to his feet, pops David in the mouth, and repeatedly says, "I just want you, just you," as he's circled by the rest of David's guys. David just smiles back at him and asks him how far he's willing to go. I was a little confused with Michael going from wanting to beat this dude's ass to exploring his house in the very next scene. The story here with their little hideout is during a big earthquake, the resort that they are in that was built on a fault line was just swallowed up whole, and that is currently now where they reside. Star looks unconcerned because she knows what's coming as David feeds Michael rice that appears to be maggots at one point and noodles which look an awful lot like worms. This scene made me look through my spaghetti and rice-a-roni at least a million times before I ever took a single bite. And then we get to the wine. Now they bring out this ornate wine bottle that David takes a healthy tug off of before offering it to Michael. And he says, "Be one of us." Now, if somebody's offering you something to drink and they tell you that, you might want to put that drink down. Star's worried. She comes up to Michael and says, "Michael, don't do it. Don't drink it. It's blood." Michael, having been tricked before by the rice and the spaghetti, says, "Yeah, whatever, sure." And he takes a swig off of that thing. Cool scene coming up next. I mean, we get images overlaid on top of one another, expressing each one of their different moods. After that happens, all the boys are celebrating. Michael feels welcome. Star is terrified. On to the bridge scene, that oh so memorable bridge scene that inspired the very thumbnail for this video. David, Michael, and the crew have made their ways to a railroad bridge with nothing underneath it but very heavy fog that night. And then one at a time, they all drop through it. And just before David drops through it, he again tells Michael to join them. Now, Michael looks down and he sees that they're all under the bridge hanging on to metal piping. So Michael climbs down and joins them. Why, I have no idea. Because right after they're all situated underneath this bridge, a train comes across and shakes it so hard, it's hard to maintain a solid grip on this stuff. Now, one by one, they all decide, we'll drop a little bit farther, and they drop into the fog beneath them. Now, this terrifies Michael. David's the last to fall, and when he falls, Michael freaks out, screaming his name. He's desperately trying to hold on. He's desperately trying to pull himself up after the train passes, but he doesn't have the strength of his arms to do it. And as soon as the train does pass and it grows silent in the night, he can hear the other four calling to him from beneath the fog. And he says, "To hell with it," and drops. And he falls what feels like forever until he finally lands on his bed at home. And then right as he starts to fall asleep, Sam comes in his room to wake him up. We see the changes in Michael almost right off the bat. I mean, he's overly sensitive to the sun, so he's wearing sunglasses all the time. But when the thirst hits him, he's home alone with his brother Sam. Lucy's out on a date with Max. Grandpa is out on a date with the widow Johnson. Both boys are in the kitchen, and they hear motorcycles revving outside. They hear laughter. They see headlights shining in through the windows. Michael assumes David and his crew have come to pay a visit, but when he opens the door, there's nobody there. He tells Sam, "Go upstairs, take your bath." Sam disappears upstairs with Nanook, that perfect, beautiful, trusty, faithful dog, and Michael tries to take a drink of milk in the kitchen, but can't do it. He collapses onto the floor, spilling the milk everywhere, and his chest is just bothering him. The thirst is just taking control of him, and it leads him upstairs towards where his brother is taking a bath. Now, Corey Haim, his character Sam's having a great time in the bathtub. He's singing to some blues song. He is giving himself a shampoo mohawk. Corey's just tremendous in this movie. Michael standing outside that door, his hand is trembling, reaching for the doorknob, and Nanook senses what's coming, and he's losing his mind. And as soon as the door swings open, that dog tackles Mike down the stairs. Sam perks up and says, "What the hell is going on?" Races downstairs, sees his brother at the foot of the stairs, his hand bleeding everywhere, and he immediately thinks about his dog before he thinks about his older brother. And Michael realizes and tells Sam that Nanook bit me, he was protecting you. That's when the color runs from Sam's face. He notices in the mirror that Michael's reflection is fading away. "You're a vampire, Michael. My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. You wait until Mom finds out, buddy." Killed it. Perfect line. Loved it. Couldn't have been better. Sam loses his mind at this point. He barricades himself in his room. He calls his mom back from her date with Max. And it's only after Michael takes flight, unwillingly, that he has to beg, plead with his brother for help. And eventually Sam comes around and realizes that it's still his big brother out there. And whatever's happening to him probably isn't his fault. And I completely popped for when Michael told Sam to keep this whole thing a secret from their mom. And Sam's like, "Yeah, I don't know, Mike. It's not like getting a D in school, you know?" It's just a great line. Great chemistry between these guys. They do a really good job also in this movie of playing up the missing person aspect. Because when Lucy is walking towards the video store, she sees a woman posting a missing flyer of the security guard that we saw get taken away in the very onset of the film. And then when Lucy comes back from her date with Max, she's awfully pissed off because Sam's telling her nothing's really wrong. And there's a carton of milk on the floor that has been spilled that nobody picked up. Lucy picks up the carton, slams it on the counter, and we see a missing child's ad on the carton of milk. And it just so happens to be Laddie, who is the little boy that Star keeps very close by her side in this one. I have to admit, I did not think much of Max at this point in the movie, short of him being Lucy's employer and the guy that wants to bang her. But we see him returning home, greeting his dog Thorn, and then we get those motorcycles again, those engines revving, those headlights. And before too long, we have a vampire bat kite that lands on Max. And what exactly does he mean to this story? Kept bouncing around in my head at that point in the film. So having just tried to feed off of his brother and then playing Superman in his bedroom shortly thereafter, Michael goes to the underground lair to find David and get some answers. But instead he finds Star and he finds Laddie. He also finds that bottle of wine that he picks up and throws across the room, convinced that's the cause of all of his problems, which, you know, wine will do that to somebody. But Star tells him, "I tried to warn you." Over and over again he asks, "Star, what's happening to me? What's happening to me, Star?" And then she says, "I don't know how to help you," before aggressively kissing him. And I guess that's a time-tested way of keeping a guy's mind off of troubles. And then we get back to the couple in bed together, and Michael takes a bandage off of his hand and realizes that the wound that Nanook had given him earlier in the evening is now fully healed. Lucy is still full on pissed at this point. She drives Sam over to Max's house to start laying out some apologies. Now on the walk to Max's front door, she is attacked by Max's dog Thorn. Barely gets away. Very brutal. The dog is out of his mind. And then we see in Sam's comic book shortly before this happens that vampires will often employ dogs, hounds of hell as they're called, to protect the vampire during the day. When Sam gets to the comic book store, because of course he's got to go confer with the Frog Brothers, they insist on him killing his brother, which Sam's just not going to do. Then Sam lays out his theory that if his brother's a vampire, he's only half a vampire. And according to the comics, if they can find the head vampire and kill him, all half vampires will turn back to human. This is when he assumes that Max is the head vampire based upon the fact that they only see him during night. His dog Thorn went haywire on Lucy, who's somebody that the dog has met before. And when Max comes over for dinner, he runs into Michael, who is heading out for the evening. And then Max tells him he won't come in unless Michael invites him in first. I mean, that's just vampire lore 101 right there. Sam invites the Frog Brothers over for this dinner and to help administer these tests. Now, it's an awkward dinner to start with, but then you've got these guys forcing garlic on Max. You've got them forcing holy water on Max. And when they hit the lights and try the mirror test, none of it works. All it does is serve to piss Lucy off even more and to leave Max all that more confused about what he's doing wrong around these people. So if you thought Michael was smitten with Star before, now that he's actually slept with her, he's going crazy. He goes to find her, can't find her, she's missing. He goes to find David. David says, if you ever want to see her again, you've got to come with us. So naturally, Michael tags along. The five of them to go to a bonfire where they see a bunch of punkers dancing around, drinking, having a good time, listening to probably Megadeth, because that's what punkers listen to. I'm a Metallica guy, sorry. And it looks like feeding time to me. Now, they did a great job of holding off on revealing to us what they look like in full vampire mode, and the design is subtle and it looks really good. It wasn't over the top, it wasn't ugly and hideous like for example, Jerry Dandridge in Fright Night. I love that movie, but I don't know what in the hell that design was. But they lay waste to these guys while Michael watches on in terror and almost gives in himself to the thirst, because you could see him slowly start to change. He's getting weaker and weaker. Now when they're all done, David and crew walk back up over that hill, looks down on Michael, and hits him with that fantastic rundown of, now you know what we are, and now you know what you are. You'll never grow old, and you'll never die, but you must feed. Killed it. Kiefer Sutherland is awesome in this movie. He was meant to play this role. Now that Michael knows he's a vampire, he confides in Sam. And Sam says, please don't kill me. Michael obviously would never do such a thing. But then Star decides to show up outside their open window. And Michael's like, no, you're not coming up. You knew I was drinking blood. You didn't do anything about it. This is bullshit. Pass. Hard pass. But she flies up to that second story bedroom window anyways, immediately telling Sam that she's one of them as well. We learn that Michael, Star, and Laddie, they're all in the same boat. They're not full-fledged vampires until they make their first kill. And we also find out that Michael was supposed to be Star's first kill that night that he came back to the underground lair. The only reason she's there that night, though, is she desperately needs Michael's help for herself and Laddie. And Michael scoffs at it. It's not going to happen. So she gets pissed, flies back out the window. Sam, however, knows exactly who to call, and the Frog Brothers come speeding up to that cabin on their bikes, armed to the teeth. Now, they're uneasy about teaming up with Michael since they know he's a vampire, but the four boys eventually pile into Grandpa's Ford Fairlane and race off to the underground lair in hopes of staking a vampire or two. So there's a great conversation when they get to the lair between Michael and Sam, with Sam trying to convince Michael that he'll be okay down there, and Michael telling him this isn't a comic book. Those guys down there are brutal killers. Sam, of course, straight face, says, so are the Frog Brothers. And Michael looks off and sees the Frog Brothers bumbling around. They're trying to load each other's packs, and it was a great way to inject a little bit of levity into the scene. But Michael says to Sam, I don't know if I'm going to be strong enough down there to protect you if something goes wrong. And Sam tells him, well, maybe this is my turn to protect you. You may be a vampire, but you're still my big brother. And dude, loved it. Now, can we talk for a second about the steel balls of these Frog Brothers? Because these kids, these teenagers, they march straight into the belly of the beast without a fullback clearing a path for them. They're just on it. They're the definition of bullets before brains, and we see that on full display when it comes time to stake a vampire. Now, Michael carries Laddie to the car before coming back to grab Star and take her to the car as well. But Sam and the Frog Brothers, they advance deeper into the lair, looking for caskets they assume these guys are going to be sleeping in. And when they do find them, they aren't sleeping in boxes, but rather hanging from the ceiling. And I'm not sure why Marco, who we know and love as Bill S. Preston Esquire, I don't know why he was the first one on the killing block, but Edgar plunges that stake through his chest, and we get a nasty scene that wakes up the other vampires, and then the race is on. The boys just narrowly get out of there, and they get Star and Laddie back to the cabin. Now, I love the fact that the filmmakers paid attention to little things, and when these two new vampires come into the house, the Nook loses his mind, barks his head off, and Sam eventually sends his dog outside, but then Sam and the Frog Brothers find themselves on their own to get ready for this battle as Michael, Star, and Laddie all wind up sleeping the day away. This is a recurring theme. Michael takes some odd naps here and there. And with a very finite amount of daylight left, the boys try to tell Lucy about what's going on, and naturally, an adult hearing this is not going to believe it, and she doesn't believe it. She tells them to kick rocks. On their own, they decide to hit a church, and then they get a bunch of holy water. They fill a bathtub with the holy water. They put crushed up garlic in the holy water in the bathtub, and then they fill squirt guns up with it. Now, as a 7-year-old, every single water battle that I had from that day on, it was me fighting vampires. I mean, they're sharpening stakes, they're readying arrows, these guys are setting booby traps. It is on like Donkey Kong. Absolutely outstanding kickoff to this battle where we see the frogs. They're giving the speech about how different vampires will die in different ways. Some will go quietly, some will be messy. That's when Sam hears that the Nook is still tied up outside, and it is pitch black out there. So if the vampires are going to come, that is the time that they are going to come. Sam races out to him, trying to undo his leash from the fence post. The others are begging him to come back before Michael also races out there to his brother to help save him and the dog. Star screams, great scream, saying, Michael, they're coming, as the 3 vampires that are left speed down towards them. Great tension in that scene that immediately puts these heroes back on their heels. Now, the end of this movie is terrific, if not brief. Again, Michael takes weird naps in opportune times, but the drama of thinking they have killed the head vampire only to find out that they haven't, then to realize who the head vampire really is, it was a great turn of events. It allows us a last-minute hero coming in at the very end of the film. We've got the Frog Brothers sitting back trying to figure out how much to charge these people for their services. This was just a perfect bow on top of this silver screen gift that was a horror movie, right down to the faces of Lucy, Michael, and Sam being lit up by the fridge that Grandpa has open while he slugs down a root beer before hitting them with a great closing line, shutting the fridge, thus darkening the faces of the mother with her boys, and then closing credits. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, there's not enough time in the day for me to go through all of the things that this movie gets right. But one of the strongest parts of classic 80s cinema was the music that went along with the movie, and whether it was Top Gun, or Footloose, or 9 to 5 for God's sake, anytime you thought of those movies, a song popped into your head, and it just stayed with you. So many of the beautifully shot scenes ride shotgun in this movie to an awesome piece of music that has stood the test of time. And that Lost Boys theme, Cry Little Sister, whether it's slowed down or sped up over the course of this movie, it just fucking works. Cast here is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Jamie Gertz has to be the 6th or 7th lead in this film, and she's beautiful in every scene she's in. Acting, obviously she looks great. Her performance is tremendous. Corey Haim, God rest his soul, steals the show. Absolutely steals the show. Every scene he's in, he is the guy. And talk about a talent taken way too soon. He's awesome. I mean, he was just so strong in this movie. And Nanook the dog is even good. He's perfect wherever you see him. Everything he does, it just tugs at the heartstrings. I've wanted a husky ever since I saw this movie. The tagline of sleep all day, party all night, never grow old, never die, it's fun to be a vampire, was so memorable when you saw it on that bright red poster back in 1987. This wasn't small town middle America where all these people went missing and people would take notice. This was California, and the perfect hunting ground for these vampires to do their thing. I had an idea of a score before I rewatched this one, but afterwards the one I came up with simply wasn't high enough. This movie is a 10 out of 10. It's perfect to me, and that's my opinion, but it's a 10 out of 10. There's no drags, there's no lulls throughout, you're never bored. You love these characters and you get uncomfortable at the thought of them being in a situation where they may die. Even the bad guys are cool as hell. I mean, Kiefer Sutherland was tremendous. He sold this role so well. Bill S. Preston, Esquire, he has like 2 lines, but he's fantastic here as Marco. And in a world that is mostly creatively bankrupt right now, they still haven't tried to remake this movie because they can't. There is nowhere to improve, and even though for some reason we are getting a sequel to Goonies, they damn well better leave this one alone. And yes, I know there were a couple of direct to Dollar General sequels that took place, but that does not take away from the excellence and staying power of this movie. It ages gracefully. It's our first perfect score here on the channel, and I had just as much fun with it on February 27th, 2025 as I did on July 31st, 1987, which is when I saw it on opening night. This is Aging Gracefully. I'm Matthew Essex. Thanks for hanging with me for 50 of these. I'll see you on the other side.